good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to see you this afternoon, and great to be able to be with you today and just to share a little with you as we celebrate God's faithfulness to the work and ministry of Glow, gospel, literature, outreach over these past 50 years. As you go, you've got a little introduction already to me. My name is Ian Smith. I'm the finance director of Glow and one of the trustees there too, married to Jenny, and I have definitely got 2 children. Okay, so just to be clear on that one, Alice is 20 and Matthew 16, and at this particular time on a Saturday afternoon, they should be working in the Glow coffee shop, tidying up and washing and serving, etc. If there's not, then there's going to be big trouble ahead. But yes, thank you, Matt, for your very kind introduction from our friends at Echoes, and just allowing us this little slot today to share with you all about Glow these last 50 years, and for that partnership that we have had with Echoes over these 50 years. And previously with Interlink as well. You have been a blessing to us as we have partnered together. I don't know about you, but I got a real encouragement today over lunch. I was with a friend at the lunch table, and he says, "Oh, you're on last, aren't you? You're the last report. That's known as the graveyard shift." He says, "Don't worry if you look out and they're all sleeping. That's just normal for this time of the day." So let me be clear, okay? Let me be clear. If you have to sleep, try and not snore, okay? And don't go horizontal. But I'm sure the Lord would just love you just to stay awake for these next 20 minutes or so together. Giving God thanks for 50 years of Glow. There we go. Good, let's keep moving on. I wonder if you can think back with me to where you were 50 years ago. Maybe some in the room weren't even born 50 years ago. What age were you back in 1974? What have you been up to these past 50 years? For me, 1974, there was a key moment in my life. I was about to start Primary 1 in Winton Primary School in Ardrossan as a cheeky wee 5-year-old. I was the youngest of 4 in a very loving family, but a non-Christian family. And who would have known? Who could ever have imagined? Who could ever have scripted that 50 years later I would be here sharing with you about God's faithfulness, not only to Glow, but to be able to stand today and to serve 25 of my 55 years in full-time ministry with Glow. So for Glow, where did it all start? Let me take you on a little journey this afternoon. Well, most of you will know as you sit in a meeting like this that the journey starts with God and His calling on an individual's life. And you may be sitting here today in our time together, and you can testify to that in your own personal life, that at a particular time in your life, God called for a particular time and a particular situation. And for Glow, Colin Tilsley was the man who had that call and vision from God. The Lord had His finger on Colin from a very, very young age, challenging, developing, maturing him for the work that God had planned to do through his short life. And his passion, and I'm sure many of our have the same passion in life, was to be able to share the wonderful gospel message. And his vision was to do it to as many people as possible by every means possible. To every people as possible by every means possible. And Glow started way back in 1965 in Australia, and Colin and his dear wife Cynthia with the plan to work with resident missionaries and national workers from around the world by sending them evangelistic teams. And for many, being on a team like that was their first call of God upon their lives, first experience of mission and God starting a journey in their lives. And today, 50 years on, one of the main heartbeats of Glow is short-term evangelistic mission teams. And I'll come back to that a little later. But let me take you back to the mid-60s in Australia. And Colin's vision was initially to get small teams of missionaries together and send them out to large strategic cities for periods of probably around 2.5 to 3.5 years. And the picture that you're looking at up there is the first Glow team to Madras, to Chennai in India in 1966. 10 young Christians having the call of God on their lives to leave home and move to India to distribute and to sell around 500,000 gospel portions. And their motto during those days was very simple: have a big faith because you're related to a big God. Have a big faith because you're related to a big God. And we today can learn so much from that little thought. God, our God, He is still in the business of changing people's lives and calling people, individual people, to go and to serve. And we're thankful for that first team of 10 who went and lived by faith and all that they achieved through their big faith in a big God that we serve. But within a short space of time, things were really moving fast in the ministry, and they were expanding around the world. Colin and Cynthia's focus was to try and establish probably what we would call home bases for the work as it expanded around the world. Australia was already set up, and so they spent time living in New Zealand to establish the work there, and on to the UK. From 1971 to 1974, they lived in Bournemouth on the south coast of England, where the Glow Europe part of the story begins in 1974. But the plan was simple, isn't it? Excite people, mobilize people with the challenge of being involved in mission. And my friends, today, that challenge and excitement of mission is as valid today as it's ever been. There is no greater call in the Christian journey, in your and I's journey with the Lord, to be and to serve where God wants you to be. Whether that is at home, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's someplace in Scotland, or even overseas. God is calling you. And if He is calling you today to get involved in some way, or more involved in some way, then have that big faith to serve this big God of our world. And I use myself as an example to that today. Brought up in a non-Christian home, a very loving home indeed, down in Ardrossan, but saved right out of the blue at the age of 16. Served in my local church, Brisbane Evangelical, in Largs from age 16 to 30, and then called by God to go and get some training at Glow Tyldesley College in Motherwell, and have had the privilege from then, from 1999 onwards, to be able to serve His church, both in the UK and in Albania. It was God who called, and God who sent, but His church, people like you, who supported. But let me bring you a little closer to home. I'm sure you've all heard of it, haven't you, or even visited it over the years, the Glow Centre in Motherwell. Is there anyone in the room today who has never visited the Glow Centre? Now, I'm sure there's people maybe from abroad with us today, but I wonder if there is anyone here who has never been. We've got one hand, and 2, 3, 4, 5, a few. I can live with that. And what I would love to do for you, half a dozen people, is why don't you come for lunch one day? And I would love to be able to take you around the Glow Centre and share it with you, and visit Tyldesley College and go to the bookshop and have a nice lunch in the coffee shop, and then you'll be able to say, I've been to Glow. I've made it in this world. But you know, days like today are good, aren't they? We enjoy being part of a service and a meeting like this. And it's been really good to catch up with people over lunch and to meet people maybe we haven't seen over the last year or so. But you know, the purpose Echoes International has in running days like today is to stimulate, to excite us about missionary interest within us and within our churches that we're part of. And that's exactly what Colin and Cynthia's purpose was way back in the early 70s. Colin, he travelled all over the UK, motivating people to be involved in mission. And many responded to that initial call, and the work and teams were started in places like France and Italy and Malta. But the need for that home base that I was talking about earlier remained until an opportunity arose in 1974 to lease what is now the Glow Centre from the Church of Scotland. Wallace Kirkland, a godly man now with the Lord, was instrumental in making that happen. And it was a tremendous opportunity and must have been a massive leap of faith for those men and women involved in those early days. People like Robert and Eileen Kilpatrick, John and Kathy Spears, they were the beginnings of the work of Glow in Europe. People who stepped out in faith and looked to God for all their support. But you know what? It was just what God had planned and what Glow needed in this old Church of Scotland. Yes, it was a bit of a mess when they got it, but it had a large hall that could seat around 800 people, 2 smaller church halls, a manse building, and a number of external wooden buildings. And you know what? From these small but big beginnings, the core ministry of Glow Europe started. A book ministry, a printing press for literature, a training centre, and a home base to reach the needy continent of Europe. And we'll come back to these ministries a little later on, but just for a little moment, a couple of minutes or so, let me focus on the mission needs of our home continent. Europe, we live there, we breathe here, this is our home. And Glow's primary aim over these last 50 years is to reach Europe with the gospel. You can read the stats maybe for yourself up there on the screen, but they show us just how great the spiritual poverty is on our very doorsteps. For every one believer who's here today, there is 10 in Africa. Secularism, the removal of religion from society, from everyday life, it's more pronounced in our country and in Europe and in this continent than anywhere else in the world. And for us, Scots, we don't need to go that far from where we are to see that in our society today. And you'd see that Europe just seems to be this magnet for people today. And you can understand when we watch it on the television, you feel for these people as they try to better their lives and come to Europe. Europe today is experiencing an influx of people from every tribe and nation. And one final fact that's up there, just for you to think about and to ponder tonight, that you are more likely to meet a Christian walking down the street in Saudi Arabia or Libya than you are if you walk down the street in Bosnia or Slovenia. Think about that in our home continent of Europe. Europe needs mission. Europe needs missionaries. And when Glow began back in 1974, the need was great. We saw it. But today, the need is still great, if not greater. But let me take you back to short-term mission. Short-term mission teams in Europe have always been a major part of Glow. The sending of small teams to support our resident missionaries or other national workers has been key. Let me ask you another question today. Hands up if you've been on a Glow team. You're blessed. You're blessed. Thank you for that. It was good to see just who has been on a team. This year, for example, we have 12 teams going to all different countries over Europe. And all sorts of people sign up. Young people, families, couples, and even older people like me can go on a GLOW team. In fact, GLOW this year has a dedicated team for the more mature in age. So that means there's a good number of you in that bracket with me, aren't you? And you could still serve and be part of a GLOW team. It's planned for early November this year, and I will be leading it. And there'll be opportunities to go and to serve and to help the growing church in Albania. I can assure you, there'll be no screaming kids in kids' work. There'll be no sleeping on the church floor. GLOW will look after you and give you a great time of mission and experience in life. But over the 50 years, we estimate there's been around 730 teams have gone out from GLOW, with over 6,500 team members. And I suppose if you were to add in the local believers and GLOW missionaries, then probably we wouldn't be far off 15,000 people mobilised into mission over the past 50 years. You know, teams, they not only offer the believer, people like you and I, an opportunity to serve in mission in a totally different culture, but they encourage and they help grow the church where they visit. People hear the gospel. People get saved and the church grows. And many times the sending church of the person sending that person on mission is encouraged when they return. And they hear about all that God is doing and has done through them and what the team has managed to achieve. And there's also many a story I could share with you today of the person who came on a GLOW team that started a journey in their lives, a journey into further training or a journey into full-time ministry. Short-term teams with GLOW. I commend them to you, and I would encourage you to do your best if you know anyone within your church to send them, to encourage them to go on a GLOW team. We thank God for our teams and what has been achieved. But we're also blessed in GLOW to have these two great resources at our hands. Scotland's largest independent Christian bookshop and a great little coffee shop for the local community. You know, the book ministry of GLOW has been around since the beginning, 1974. In fact, probably a couple of years earlier than that, as the vision and as plans came together. But the production of good Christian literature for distribution on our summer teams and the sourcing of good Christian books and Bibles to sell was key to the growth of the ministry at the beginning. Robert and Eileen Kilpatrick were key in those early days of the book ministry. And then passing the baton on to faithful others, Jeff and Janet Rushton. Jeff's with us today. And right up to the present with our current bookshop manager, Andrew Lacey. You know, we will never really know the impact of giving out a little tract or a little piece of Christian literature into someone's hand or through their letterbox, or maybe buying a book or a card or a gift and passing it on to someone. There is many a story to tell of individuals turning up at church simply because of getting something through the letterbox, or a friend passing them something with a Christian verse on it. And for some, that was the key to starting their journey to faith. And the bookshop at Motherwell, and also in past years our Kirkcaldy bookshop and coffee shop, has provided a vital resource for believers and churches across the UK. I think looking back, if I was to use average figures, at least £25,000 each year in profit from our bookshop and coffee shop has gone directly back into mission and the mission needs of GLOW to support mission and missionaries throughout Europe. And if I could leave just one little thought with you on this subject, please do your best, okay? But only if you can. Buy your Christian books from a Christian bookshop. Don't use that online retailer who's got a name like the Rainforest. I'll not mention them since it's getting videoed, just in case they sue me. But do your best to support mission and missionaries where you can. But the training and equipping of believers to share their faith more effectively and to know and to teach the message of the Bible has been key to growth of mission around Europe. I personally don't think I could ever have taken that step into full-time ministry without the training and without the encouragement that I received at Glow Tyldesley College. It was a life-changing year for me. And not only for me, but for Jenny, my wife, also way back in 1999. You know, the first full year of training at Glow started in 1975. Fred Kelling and his wife Ruth accepted that call of God on their lives to set up that initial training course. And over the years, key people have come and developed and encouraged and helped the ministry of training. Ray and Eunice Costin, again, they're with us today. Graham Poland, David Clarkson, Stephen McCoy, Mark Davis, and right up to the present with our current principal, Alan McKinnon. And current numbers show that just over 500 individuals have completed the year's training at Glow. If you were to add in the second and third year options that are available now, maybe you could add another 70 or 100 to this. It can be a life-changing year. And what a valuable and amazing resource is Glow Tyldesley College, just half an hour along the motorway from here. So 50 years have come and gone, and we're thankful for each member of staff in the college and each student that God has brought to us over the years. Many who have since used that initial year of training to propel them into some sort of full-time ministry for the Lord. And maybe there's someone in your church today that you think they could really use and need that little year at Tyldesley College. So do your best to encourage them to come with us on the year starting in September. And just to say, if you think the team at Glow Tyldesley can help you or your church, please have a little chat with them today before you go. They're out there on the stalls and they'll be happy to talk to you. They have a number of different training initiatives and learning options available, not only for you as an individual, but for your church and people in your church. And they would love to open that conversation with you. But I'm going to start now just to bring this little report to a close. And I hope I've just been able to give you just a little taste of the ministry of Glow over these last 50 years. It is only a taste. But over the years, we have been blessed by people God has called and used and brought to us at Glow for his work and ministry in Glow in Europe. Today, we have over 80 individuals involved in the family of Glow in Europe, serving in different countries and situations. I've picked out just 4 for you this afternoon. Our resident missionaries, some of you, I'm sure you will know. Philippe and Marie-Christine Perellier of France, pioneer evangelists and church planters in the south of France and Marseille. Pray for them as they work in that secular country of France. Andrew and Lorna Burt and their lovely girls serving in Enniscorthy in Southern Ireland. We heard this morning about what life is like in Ireland. They have been serving faithfully over many years in the very hard and difficult culture of Southern Ireland. In fact, I think they have an anniversary too soon of 20 years of the church in Enniscorthy. Patrizio and Jennifer Zucchetto and family serving in Serino on the outskirts of Naples in Italy. Patrizio, a Neapolitan, Jennifer from Northern Ireland, but their lives are embedded into the community of Serino and sharing that love of the Lord Jesus with people that they meet every day in their lives. And then Yuli and Ella Muhammeti and their girls from the coastal town of Vlor in Albania. 50 years ago, Albania was a closed country. No churches, all religion banned, maybe just a handful of believers in the whole country. Hardline communism until the early 1990s. But today, through hard work and commitment and God's blessing upon that little country, the Albanian church is growing, and we should be thankful for that. Lives are being transformed. Remember that little short-term mission team in November? You could be there helping Yuli and Ella and the Glow team just to encourage them and to build up their little church and ministry in November. So whether it's France or Ireland, Italy, Albania, or the many countries in between, the Glow Europe family bring you their greetings today and their thanks for your continued help and your support and your prayers. Many of you have been with us on this journey over the past 50 years. And this little picture that's up here on the screen was taken at our annual conference in August last year. And we continue to strive as that first Glow team went for that big faith in life. For we serve a God who is big and can do miraculous things. So 50 years of Glow, another 50 to come, we pray, and we ask God for his help and guidance in that. But today, just for a little moment, we are so thankful just to say to God, thank you for 50 years of Glow and all that he's achieved through many a different individual and many a person who's come to faith. For we serve a God who is big, and we're blessed to be part of that family. So join with us as we travel together the next 50 together. Thank you.